Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Crystal?
Indeed, we do. Big breaking news for you this morning. Facebook/Meta has decided to let the big guy himself, Donald Trump, back on the platform. Not a huge surprise at this point. I mean, the guy is running again. You kind of like there was a lot of pressure for them to ultimately do this. But we'll dig into the decision because they've thrown in some caveats there as well, trying to kind of have it both ways. Same time, huge news with regard to Ukraine. We have decided to send them tanks. That is a line in the sand that we had drawn previously. And even as recently as 5 days ago, there were all kinds of news articles that were like, yeah, we're not going to do that. Well, now we are. So talk about what that means. We also have some new financial disclosures from George Santos that, if anything, just deepen the mystery of where his cash that he put into his campaign actually came from. We've got the Mississippi auditor, some incredible video of him sounding off on that Brett Favre welfare scandal. Nancy Pelosi caught in a gigantic trade just before major antitrust action against Google. And in a related antitrust note, we also have Jim Cramer melting down on CNBC about government action against some of these big companies. We have Ryan Cooper on the show today to dig into an idea that has just been floated, which is using a sovereign wealth fund in order to fund Social Security. So it'd be interesting to get his take on all of that.
Yeah, but let's start with Facebook. This is obviously huge in the realm of tech and censorship. So let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. Meta, the parent company of Facebook, I always have to say that, is ending its suspension of Donald Trump's accounts with new guardrails to deter, quote, repeat offensive. Written by Nick Clegg, the former British politician, the president of global affairs over at Meta. He says, quote, we will be ending the suspension of Mr. Trump's Facebook and Instagram accounts in the coming weeks. We have put in new guardrails to place to deter repeat offenses. The public should be able to hear what politicians are saying so they can make informed choices. Imagine what a controversial decision. So here's what they say. The public should be able to hear what the politicians are saying, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so they can make informed choices at the ballot box. I agree. But that does not mean there are no limits to what people can say on our platform. When there's a clear risk of real-world harm, a deliberately high bar for Meta to intervene in public disclosure, we act. Now, of course, that is an outrageous standard, one of which is deeply capricious and of which is completely open to their own interpretation. So they go through a whole bunch of fake legalese. And the reason I'm saying that is there's no law. All of this is contrived. This blog post refers to its oversight board, to its internal processes. Listen, it's all fake. They claimed that, oh, well, after a rigorous standard put into place, we decided on January 8th to suspend Donald Trump's account on Facebook, as if it was part of some long-standing decision and then finally it entered. That's outrageous. All of it was done in a completely supposedly uncoordinated act by Twitter, Facebook, and many other big tech platforms with regards to Trump and kind of a post-January 6th hysteria. But whenever they do restore the account, they say some things which we should hold them to account in the future. They say, quote, the normal state of affairs is that the public should be able to hear from a former president of the United States and a declared candidate for office again on our platform. Now the time period of suspension has elapsed. The question is not whether we choose to reinstate Mr. Trump's account, but whether there remains such extraordinary circumstances that justify extending the suspension beyond the original 2-year period. Crystal, they say that they have now, quote, new guardrails in place and that there will be a strike system and that should he ever, quote, endanger the public again in the future, that they will take his account down. But look, at the end of the day, this is all in Mark Zuckerberg's hand. He made the call to take it down. He made the call to put him back on. It's insane that this is even in the power of a single man, and I just hate all of the fake contrivance around, oh, well, now we have decided.
Here's our protocols, as if they won't just completely dispatch with them or come up with some sort of tortured rationale for the next time they take action against this account. Yeah, I mean, all of the legalese and the quote-unquote guardrails that they put out here, it's just an attempt to quiet critics who want Trump to remain off of Facebook. They're trying to have it both ways. They're trying to, you know, the other piece that we shouldn't ignore here is it's not just their assessment of like free speech and potential, you know, acts of violence. They've also got a bottom line that they have to worry about, and Donald Trump spends a lot of money on Facebook ads. So I heard Ro Khanna make this point, and I think it's a good one. It's not an accident that all of these social media platforms, and Facebook in particular, because they probably got the most money from the Trump campaign, like the 1 year that they don't have him on is the year that it happens to be like irrelevant to the political process, basically, and also irrelevant in terms of their bottom line because wasn't running for anything. It was like the only year since he popped up on the scene 2016, where he wouldn't have been spending really money with them anyway. So it was not any sort of loss to them. Well, now that he's ramping up his campaign, well, now there's some money to lose. So that also has to weigh into some of these decisions as well. But yeah, ultimately, this is all a farce. They will do with this account what they decide. It is in the hands of Mark Zuckerberg. He has previously concocted these sort of elaborate schemes to try to distance himself and make it like there's this Facebook Supreme Court and it's this independent board of arbitration. No, it's up to him. He made the decision. He will make the decision again. And all of this is just an attempt to quiet critics, which of course won't work. I mean, the people who want him off forever, they're going to continue to want him off forever, and that's not going to change.
Exactly correct. And, you know, Trump, to his credit, actually intuits some of this. Let's put this up there on the screen. He says, Facebook, which has lost billions of dollars in value since deplatforming your favorite president, me, has just announced that they are reinstating my account. Such a thing should never again happen to a sitting president or anybody else, which is not deserving of retribution. Thank you to Truth Social for doing such an incredible job. Your growth is outstanding and future unlimited. Not so sure about that part, but am sure definitely that they did lose some money. And at the very least, look, he's not wrong. I mean, in terms of the way that we thought about these platforms, a lot of it was destroyed in 2017 with deplatforming and in general really ramping up throughout those years. But the final act really was Trump. And actually, when you really think about it, it was Trump in conjunction with Parler. I still remain that Parler was one of the most dangerous and censorious things that's ever happened, because that was about the infrastructure of web itself, like with Amazon Web Services and the denial of servers that would literally allow a company to exist. That is where things really kicked into high gear. And I've done other monologues here since then about Andrew Tate. You can hate Andrew Tate, but simultaneous deplatforming across the internet is pretty insane. Kiwi Farms was another big one. I mean, we're talking about delisting on Google. Like then we're talking about the very ability to exist online. I'm not even saying I like any of these places, but it's not about like. It's like, how can this be in the hands of, Sundar Pichai over at Google, of Tim Cook, the removal from the App Store? That was another big one. I mean, I believe Apple has, if not a majority, near majority of control over cell phones in the United States. These are all things where, and this is the classic example, the phone company. The phone company doesn't care what you say on the phone.
Right.
If you break the law when you're on the phone, it's the government's job to go and get a subpoena and be like, okay, he's breaking the law while he's on the phone. It's not AT&T's job to censor what you're saying to somebody else in a private phone call. Now, you can say, yeah, but the internet is different because you're talking to everybody, but not really. I mean, when you think about infrastructure, that's the whole point, is the infrastructure is supposed to be completely content neutral. And we escaped that on January 8th, 2021.
I mean, I think it's a little more complex than that, because almost everybody agrees there should be some limits to what people are able to say. I mean, threats of violence, doxing, outright harassment, revenge porn. Like, there are lines that I think society would want to draw, and that we draw with the First Amendment as well. But even a place like 8chan has some rules around what you can and can't post. So that's where things ultimately get complicated, because then you have to ask, it's not like a phone company, because you have to ask, all right, where do we draw that line? The problem is having the power to decide where do we draw that line on something that ends up being really critical to our democratic infrastructure in the hands of a very few people. And it being a complete black box. I mean, before the Twitter files came out, we really had no insight into the internal process within Twitter, as one example, for how they came to this decision. And once we did have some insight into how they came to that decision, it was exactly as we suspected. It was completely ad hoc. It was driven by a couple of ideological actors. It was driven by, external pressure and the sense of employees at Twitter of how the people around them in their lives would judge them if they didn't take action against these things. And so even though they had these stated rules governing the platform, ultimately, when push came to shove, it just ended up being their own personal decision-making that led to the outcome of Trump being banned from the platform. So, that to me is the core of the issue. And it, in fact, is quite relevant. We have a number of stories in the show today about antitrust actions being taken, the attempt to curb and check some of the power of big tech, which obviously is relevant in terms of censorship, but relevant in terms of all sorts of aspects of our lives on and off the internet. And it really is a sort of crucial frontline battle of our time, and one that, fortunately, there is some some genuine bipartisanship on. There are plenty of people who just posture, plenty of Republicans who just want to posture about the censorship, but then like Jim Jordan, ultimately all they're doing is like carrying water for the tech companies. They don't actually care about the power piece. If you're not focused on the power of these companies when it comes not just to censorship, but all of the activities that they engage in and all of their impact on public life, then ultimately you're not really serious about this.
Important point. We're going to table this discussion. We're going to talk a lot more about both the Google lawsuit that the Department of Justice, the second Justice Department lawsuit against that company, and also about the overall reaction to antitrust and how things are changing.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Sagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us. And if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.